I was wiping red wine off a marble floor when the glass hit my arm, when the house went dead quiet, when the man I was hired to protect looked at me like I had just taken a bullet for him. That's the first moment you should know about, the one where people show you exactly who they are without meaning to. And here's my question to you in the first 3 sentences. If someone threw a glass at your head and the person with the power said you were the problem, would you stand your ground, or would you walk out with your dignity and a bandaged arm? Be honest, because I had to pick in real time. This is Storm Bay, Washington, a gray little harbor town where trees lean into wind like they're gossiping, and sitting on the ridge above it all is the Kincaid estate, 4 stories of marble and memory. Inside that house, everything is arranged to look permanent, like money can pin time to the wall. I was the live-in caregiver, the one who makes sure Mr. Everett has his meds on schedule, his sweater over his shoulders, his oxygen where he can find it without asking. He's got the soft voice of a man who used to fill boardrooms with a glance, and the tremor that tells you his body is making him renegotiate every simple thing. I swore to keep him safe. That night, I kept it. Sloane, my employer's wife, walked in first, heels talking like little hammers, lipstick like a warning sign. "Get away from him, Lila," she said, smiling the kind of smile people use when they're about to do something you're supposed to forgive. She had a goblet of Syra in her hand, like a stage prop, and I swear to you, I saw the throw before it happened, the muscle twitch in her forearm, the way her shoulder rolled. The glass left her fingers in a red arc. I moved without thinking, stepped in front of Mr. Everett, took the hit, felt the burn wine and blood together. And here's the part that still echoes. She didn't gasp, she didn't say sorry. She tilted her chin toward the doorway, where her husband had just appeared, and said, "I keep telling you she's inappropriate." Yeah, that happened. Damon stood there in his camel coat, the Kincaid son, the spreadsheet type who reads numbers like tea leaves. He looked at the blood on my sleeve, looked at his father, looked at Sloane with her ready-made tears, and he did the fair thing people do when they've already chosen a side. He asked me to leave. "I need space," he said, palms up as if he was breaking up a fight at Sunday school. "Lila, please go." Mr. Everett reached for me, voice thin. She saved me, but it came out like wind through pine. Sloane rolled a tear off her cheek with her thumbnail and waited for me to obey. I walked to the door, kept my back straight, kept the blood from dripping on the stone, and when it clicked closed behind me, the rain outside walked right into my bones. Quick pattern interrupt. Sometimes doing your job right gets you fired faster than doing it wrong. You know what I mean. I wrapped the cut at the clinic and lied about tripping on bus steps. Then I went back to my little basement studio in the old cannery and sat on the bed with my phone face down because my sister would be texting. And what do you text back when the hospital wants numbers for your mother's chemo and your bank app looks like a joke? I watched the rain paint the window with shaky lines and tried not to hate the word dismissed. There are words that follow you around a room, that crawl under doors, that whisper while you're trying to eat a sandwich. Dismissed is one of them. Meanwhile, in a windowless room off the Kincaid Library, there's a wall of monitors. Most guests never see cameras set at angles that don't care about anybody's feelings, and Damon was in there alone, scrubbing backward through time. He watched the slow-motion red arc, the glass leaving Sloane's hand, my shoulder turning, Mr. Everett jerking in his chair, the glass shattering against my arm. No sound on those feeds, but silence has a hiss, and shame, well, shame hits like a quiet meteor. He couldn't look away. He watched and watched until the idea that he'd chosen the wrong truth sank all the way through his chest. The next night, he found me at the Harbor Light Diner, the one off the pier, the coffee unapologetically strong pie that tastes like somebody's aunt baked it because somebody's aunt did. He stepped in with rain still on his coat eyes that hadn't slept and sat across from me without waiting to be invited. "You don't work for me anymore," I said, because I needed to hear it out loud, and also because boundaries are free and sometimes they're all you've got. He put an envelope on the formica with 2 fingers and slid it toward me like it might bite. "I watched the footage," he said. "I was wrong. This is reinstatement, triple salary private coverage for your mom, and a suite near my father, so we stopped playing hide and seek with his oxygen." He talked like a man with a plan, but his hands were trembling, and that's how I knew he meant it. It would have been easy to say yes right there. People like me don't get offered ladders. We get offered towels to wipe the mud off our shoes. I traced the sugar packet with my thumb and said, "You want a neat fix? I get it. But there's more here than a hallway and a glass." He stiffened, ready for a fight that wasn't coming. "Tell me." I shook my head, not to be dramatic, but because some truths come with detonators. Not in a diner, not while he's stable. He deserves to be awake to say it. "If you're serious, put me back where I can do my job." He nodded once, a real promise, and I took the envelope. Mini CTA. Stick around, because what happened next will blow your mind. Walking into that house the next morning felt like walking onto a stage where the crowd already picked sides. Eyes lifted when I passed, uniforms paused mid-fold, whispers like gnats you can swat but never kill. Sloane was gone from sight. Damon was in a room with his attorney and a stack of papers that smelled like consequences. There were signatures that didn't belong to Mr. Everett. A transfer trail through Luxembourg that sounded like a spell, a ski condo. She'd called a company retreat, furnished with sculptures that looked like expensive insults. Damon read in silence, the kind that burns, then signed motions called the estate lawyer told 3 people who still believed in Sloane's brilliance to find other hills to die on. He didn't look at me while he did it. I didn't need him to. I found Mr. Everett in the sunroom with morning in his lap, light laying across his blanket. When he saw me, he smiled like a kid who just realized the neighbor's dog actually knows his name. "There you are," he whispered, and something tight in my chest finally unclenched. It's a strange thing to love a man who has done things you hate, but we don't choose who needs us, we choose whether we show up. 3 days later, his heart reminded us it was tired. The monitor line got ideas, the breath got lazy, the room tilted a little. I swapped the cannula for a mask, kept my voice even, because panic leaks into air and leaves stains. Damon walked in on the knife edge between almost and not yet. "What happened?" he said. "He's tired." I told him we're helping him breathe until his body remembers how to do it without thinking. Mr. Everett grabbed my wrist with surprising strength and tried to speak. "Lila, if I don't make it, tell him." I leaned close. "We're not doing last words today. Breathe, save the speeches for tomorrow." He drifted, machines hummed, and I counted to 100 3 times without checking the numbers, because sometimes a body just wants to be counted without feeling like a score. In the hall, Damon cornered me with the posture of a boy called to the principal. "What did he want you to tell me?" Deep breath. Ceiling tiles. Choose the honest sentence. A 30-year truth, I said he told me because he didn't want to die with it, and he made me promise not to speak unless he couldn't. He laughed without humor. "So you and he made a club, without me." I met his eyes. He made a mistake, then another trying to fix it. "That's not a club. That's being human." He winced, ran a hand through his hair, and swallowed the next argument like it tasted bad. Mr. Everett woke the next afternoon. The storm finally traded for sun. Damon was already there, unshaven eyes raw. He didn't posture. He just said, please." Mr. Everett looked at the window at me, at his son, then back at the window like he was asking it for permission. He started carefully laying a plank on a bridge we all had to cross. "You are my son," he said to Damon, "in every way that matters." Damon closed his eyes like someone had finally told him the result, and the test wasn't over yet. And biology had a different plan, Mr. Everett whispered. The air went thin. Then the rest came out in pieces. Years back, the Kincaids went to a clinic in Portland called Cypress Harbor, signed a stack of forms taller than a Bible, bought certainty the way powerful people do, and a technician's rush, a mislabeled tank, an error that looked like a smudge on paper, and 9 months later, a baby with Mr. Everett's name and someone else's ghosts. They found out when Damon was 5 after a school test asked a blood question Mr. Everett's body couldn't answer. The clinic apologized with NDAs stapled to cash. The board said the words liability and reputational harm like they were cousins, and the Kincaids chose silence because they told themselves it was kinder or easier. "If I told you then, I would have stolen your childhood," Mr. Everett said, voice breaking. "If I tell you now, I steal your adulthood. I chose wrong twice." He looked at me and I knew it was my turn to sit with the consequence of keeping a promise that never felt clean. I told Damon the part that belonged to me. The nurse who took the fall for that error, who lost her license, who went from white coat to night shifts and home care. She's my mother. She never said it outright. She just kept a box at the back of her closet with a settlement letter and a confidentiality clause that felt like a threat. And after her first chemo, I found it while looking for blankets. That's why I took the job, sure, because it paid, but I stayed because Mr. Everett asked me to carry a truth he couldn't, and I said yes when I should have said no. Pattern interrupt. Sometimes loyalty is just a prettier word for a weight you can't put down. Damon looked at his father like the man was both stranger and refuge, then looked at me like I'd turned the lights on in a room he didn't know he was living in. "He destroyed her career," he said about Everett then to me, "and you took care of him anyway." I shrugged, because truth is clumsy. He's not the only person I'm taking care of. If it were you, what would you have done? Take the money and run. Tell the secret and burn the house down. Do you think that's fair? People love a neat third act. Villain punished, hero celebrated, dessert served. We didn't get that. We got something better and harder. Damon called the whole staff into the long dining room, stood there with his sleeves rolled, and said the quiet part out loud. "Some of you saw what happened," he said. "Some of you heard stories. Here's the truth. Lila protected my father, and I punished her. That ends now. Anyone who disrespects her leaves. Effective today, my father's care is her domain. Complaints come to me, not to gossip, not to Sloan. The room stirred at her name like it was a ghost we weren't ready to say. He didn't list the forged signatures or the offshore shuffle because there's only so much an audience can digest. But he did say, we will not launder cruelty with art, and 3 people in the back flinched. Mr. Everett had an envelope for me too, addressed in a shaky hand, a seat on the Kincaid Foundation's Community Care Board, and a check so bright I couldn't look straight at it. I slid it back. Put it in a fund. I said for out-of-work nurses who refuse NDAs because they still believe in their oath. Put my mom's name on it. Small letters. She hates attention. Damon laughed, once the kind that ends in a breath. Done, he said. First, Grant goes out this week. Stick around because here comes the messy part. Sloan didn't exit quiet. People like her never do. She tried to sell a version in Seattle where I seduced a grieving old man into changing his will, as if consent can't live in a body with tremors, as if pushing a wheelchair means your integrity is up for debate. The story died because security footage speaks a language even her friends understood. The red arc is hard to explain away. Lawyers did their dance, the Luxembourg puzzle unspooled, the condo found a new owner, and the house that used to be a museum of silence learned how to make a new sound. Relief. Life settled into a rhythm that felt like church. I read Mr. Everett the same paragraph 3 times. We pretended we'd finished chapters. He apologized in new words. Every third day, I told him guilt isn't a dish you clean, it's salt you learn how to use. Damon put out a statement with only 3 truths. He loved his father. He wasn't hunting down biology to replace family. And the Kincaid Foundation was launching the Rosa Navarro Fellowship for medical workers pressured to sign silence where truth belongs. My mother cried at her kitchen table, then told me not to tell anyone she cried. Yeah, that sounds like her. One afternoon by the koi pond, Damon asked the question that still hums in the back of my head. If we could find them, he said, meaning the people whose cells started him, do we tell them? Do we walk into somebody's life with a truth they didn't ask for? Mr. Everett said something new and healthy. That's not my decision to make. He looked at me. I said the part that isn't neat. Either choice costs you. Open the door and you can't close it. Leave it shut and you let a mistake decide the rest. Decide what kind of man you want to be, then accept the bill. Do you think that's fair? If blood and love disagree, which one wins? A week later, an envelope showed up with no return address, just a photocopied intake sheet from 36 years ago with a name blacked out so neatly it felt like kindness and one sentence written underneath. We stayed away so you could have the life we couldn't give you. Damon carried that paper for 3 days like a spare heart. He didn't show his father because grace has a growth curve. He showed me because I already live in rooms where 2 truths sit across from each other and refuse to move. What do I do? He asked. Keep it, I said. And when you can read that line without bleeding, decide if you want to send a letter that might burn down a house you've never lived in. Cruel or kind? You tell me. Here's the part some of you will love me for, and some of you will roast me for in the comments. I still meet Sloane once a month. Hotel lobby, expensive perfume, sunglasses, indoors, you can picture it. I bring her an update on Mr. Everett's physical therapy because she asked. I mention the orchids because she always said she liked them, even when it was a lie. And she says things like, do they say my name? And I tell her not anymore. Because sometimes the kindest thing left is to leave someone unnamed. Why do I go? Because forgiveness is a vitamin for the caregiver, not a favor to the guilty. Because refusing to become what hurt you is a daily discipline. Damon hates it. He calls it confusing. He's right. Will I stop? Maybe if she tells herself the truth, maybe if Mr. Everett asks, and it's not to tidy his conscience, maybe never, because stubbornness is my most reliable engine. That sentence alone will start a fight at Thanksgiving. So where are we now? The fellowship is mailing checks with my mother's name in small letters. The staff says my name without stretching it into a judgment. Mr. Everett has more good days than bad. And when the bad ones come, we sit with them until they pass. Damon drives himself sometimes and stalls and laughs like a kid. And the house that once felt like a museum finally sounds like a home. That's not a fairy tale, that's us doing the work. If you're still with me, thank you for sitting in a story that ends more like a porch light left on than fireworks. Now it's your turn. When is a secret protection, and when is it a crime, and who gets to decide? If someone like me takes care of the man whose signature indirectly ruined her mother's career, is that strength or self-betrayal? Should Damon knock on a door that might upend a life, just to answer a question he didn't ask. And what do we owe to people like Sloane? A courtroom, a cold shoulder, or a chance to tell herself the truth. If it were you, what would you have done? Drop your thoughts, your arguments, your own messy stories in the comments. I read them all. And if this hit you anywhere close to the heart, like, share, subscribe. Help another tired caregiver or complicated son stumble into this corner, and remember they aren't alone.